students. So it is a very student-oriented event. And it is vital for your understanding of literature because you have to understand history. As I keep saying in the class also, you cannot exist in isolation. You are where you are because of the efforts of somebody, who happens to live before you. He did something which is why you're living the way you're living the life that you are living today. So it is very important for us to understand the history of the literature that we are pursuing our studies in. Right? So, and then there's one more question. Why a lecture upon the history of literature? There are plenty of books available, you can always go and read them out, which you do not do yet. For this, I will always say that it is always better to apprehend than to comprehend. Because you get a chance to arrest a moment of time on your own personal timeline. You get to create a memory of it, right? So which is why listening is a very important activity. It is a very remarkable activity. It makes you have memories. So which is why a lecture. Now, to explain the rationale, the seed beneath this event, I would invite Dr. Pankaj Kumar sir to please explain us the idea of it. Welcome, sir.
Respected principal, my colleagues, and my dear students, the whole idea that when we talk of a subject like contextualizing British literature, a history series, because that emerges from the very fact that when we tend to contextualize something, when we tend to put something into perspective, without perspective, I don't exist, you don't exist, we all don't exist. So for our existence, a perspective has to be created. One of the rationales behind organizing this series is to make you aware with the historicity of Britishness. And what is Britishness? It has a legacy. English language didn't emerge from nowhere. There was a process involved. Literature didn't emerge from vacuum. There was a process involved in it. And when we look at that, we come face to face with history. And that is what we are trying to do when we tend to contextualize British literature. British literature, of course, they all would say the first written book, but it moves on. The same literature is not repeated. Changes do occur. And why do these changes occur? Primarily because society changes, its economics changes, its history changes. And to adapt to all those changes, to encapsulate the changes that happen all around, literature becomes a medium. Emerging challenges lead to new solutions, new thought processes, and literature is primarily a reflection of those thought processes, right? So, our young colleagues in the department, they came up with the idea. It's not my idea as such. They came up with the idea, especially Vaishali, Chetna, and Ruchika. They came up with the idea that when we go to a class, the first thing that we do is background. So, if we organize a lecture series that would talk about the background of the entire British literature, and as sir was mentioning, we also ought to contextualize Indian literature. Yes, sir, that is a step further. But after all, until and unless we know the root, we cannot come to the Indian context. So let us first of all understand British literature. The days when we were studying, in our graduation level, there was nothing called the Indian content. It was all British. It was called English honors. Now, English honors has accommodated translation, has accommodated literatures that have been on margin. It has also accommodated literature that is our own. But in order to get a glimpse, in order to understand literature in a better way, first of all, we need to analyze the root, and that root is British literature. And that is why in this series, the history series, this is the first part of the series that we are planning to organize. The latter parts will follow, where we tend to cover all the ages of British literature, starting from the Anglo-Saxon to the Norman conquest to the present day, post-truth. So all these will be coming up. This will help you not only to understand the texts that are assigned to you, but will also open up new avenues for you, where you can look into the root causes of British literature, how society has emerged, how social history has been written, how economic history has a reflection on the literature that is being written, how political history has shaped the literature that has emerged. So all these are part and parcel of the contextualization that we talk about. And as Sir said, sure sir, if during the coming years, we will also talk in terms of contextualizing the Indian literature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You really set the tone for the lecture to begin. Now, without wasting any more time, I would request our first speaker of the day, Madam Anjali, who is also an alumni of Delhi University and an assistant professor in our home college, Swamitharanand College. I invite her, I welcome her to please start the session and contribute her ideas on the lecture. Thank you.
All the faculty members and students, a very good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Pankaj sir for giving this opportunity. As he has also mentioned that as students of English literature, it's important for us to understand the roots. And today I will address on where English literature, its culture and language comes from. So when we talk about Old English, it's not the Chaucerian English that we are referring to. There is a period that precedes Chaucerian period, that is the Middle Age, and this period is called Anglo-Saxon period. But before going into Anglo-Saxon period, I will take you around 400 BC, when the Celts, who were also known as the natives of England, they arrived in England. They belonged to Breton tribe, and hence the term comes Britain. They were not a Christian group. They believed in magic, mysterious nature, and they worshipped nature. They believed in ritual dances and human sacrifices. So basically, we can say that they believed in paganism. Then, in 43 BC, Romans invaded England, and they brought in with them their own influences like organized government, grazing techniques, and economy. Their rule was less mysterious and magical as compared to the Celts. After ruling till 410 AD, the Romans left Britain, and then in the early 5th century, for around 449 AD, came the Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxons were Germanic tribe who included Angles, Saxons, and the Jews. However, the presence of Jews was very limited as can you please change the screen? Yeah. Okay, use this PPT and I will share with you. So as you can see from the map, the Jews formed a very little, a tiny area in the conquered Britain, and the major part was conquered by Angles and the Saxons. So the land took on a new name, which was Angle Land, which later turned into England as we call it today. Anglo-Saxons, when they reached Britain, they took influences from Celts and the Romans. So they combined the culture of both the Celts and Romans, and where they took magical and violent elements from the Celts and organized rule and economy from the Romans. Anglo-Saxon culture formed the base or it laid the foundation of English culture, and their language is what we today call Old English. So I hope it's clear from where this Old English comes from. As we all know, hierarchy has always been present in Indian society, and so was it in Anglo-Saxon period, where God is placed, as you can see from the slide, the God is placed at the topmost levels, be it a pagan God or a Christian God that later on. So, and then came the king, who directly got all his powers from God, and we can also get the whole of the idea, divine rights of came from here, as God directly got all his powers from God and from the will of God, basically. And then came the warriors, and at the bottommost level were slaves, who were basically the natives, the Britons. That's why slaves and Britons are the two interchangeable terms. Now, having talked about the society, the social structure, let's move on to the religion part. Anglo-Saxon society was a mix of pagan and Christian values. Initially, they believed in paganism. However, in the late 6th century, the process of Christianization began, especially after the arrival of Saint Augustine, who came from Rome in 597 AD. He is considered to be the founder of the Church of England, and he also became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. The kingdoms of all the kingdoms of Anglo-Saxon England by 7th century accepted the order of Roman Christianity. However, when we look into these two religions, paganism and Christianity, we find some basic and fundamental differences between the two. For instance, pagans did not believe in an afterlife. They did not believe in an afterlife. They believed in earthly glory, and they lived for pride and honor. Whereas, on the other hand, Christians did believe in afterlife, and from where we get the concept of heaven and hell. They lived for morality because they believed that whatever actions a human does on earth will decide where he will go after his death. Either he will land up in heaven or in hell. And they were against the idea of honor and pride. Another major difference that we see is pagans believed in the worship multiple gods, whereas Christians were devoted to just one God. Now, with the widespread of Christianity, there came the need of written word, as the religion and its services highly dependent on the written holy scriptures. So, the old Germanic language was replaced by Latin, and all the scriptures were written in Latin. Even the first great English historian, Bede, wrote his history of English people in Latin. And if we look at English language today, we see there are a number of words that still exist in our language that are taken and are borrowed from Latin. For example, bishop, martyr, font, and so on and so forth. However, there is another point to be noticed that in the early English culture, the literacy rate was very low, and literacy was only limited to those who were in holy orders, or basically the clergy people. So, but that doesn't mean that they were left untouched by the literature of their period. I give a reference to Indian culture. In Indian literature, most of the early works were orally translated. And for instance, our great epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, they were initially a part of oral literature. Similarly, in Britain too, the literature in a broader aspect was present in oral form that in English that was understood by common people as well. Now, then in the late 8th century, the Vikings or the sea raiders. So they came through the sea route and they ransacked the land and they destroyed most of English culture and literature. And this is why we have just one story from the Anglo-Saxon period, that is Beowulf. Beowulf is the most substantial surviving Old English poem written by an anonymous writer or poet. And it refers back to an age of monster saints in Scandinavia. And it also takes us back to pagan values, to pre-Christian values, where earthly glory, as I have already mentioned, earthly glory was of importance. So it takes a lengthy epic form and praises and glorifies the hero Beowulf, who slays the monster Grendel and achieves glory and pride. Apart from this Germanic literature, a lot of religious and Christian literature was produced during this period, especially during the later half of Anglo-Saxon period after Christianity came in. And it included themes like sin, resurrection, salvation, and the piety of saints. Now let's move on to the final turning point of Anglo-Saxon period, when Edward the Confessor died in January 1066, and he left before him no heir. After this, Harold Godwinson, he was crowned as the King of England, and he became the last Anglo-Saxon king. He ruled for a very short period of time, not even a year, and after which William, Duke of Normandy, he marched in England with his French army as he routed from France, and he defeated King Harold in the famous Battle of Hastings, or as we popularly know as Norman Conquest of 1066. Now, since William came from France, he brought in with him French culture, its tradition, literature, and language, which soon got combined with the existing English literature, and it led to the dawn of medieval period, as Anglo-Saxon period ended here, and the medieval period or the Middle Ages began from there. You can see this timeline, which tells from where Anglo-Saxon period started and ended. Next. Just a summary of it.
We provide you with the PPT, so you don't have to take photographs. Don't worry.
So after William assumed the throne of England, he was known as William the Conqueror. And when he ascended the throne, he found England a mainly feudal land which was ruled by a native aristocracy ordered by a rich and influential church. It was a land where king, nobleman, and peasant all spoke English, and an educated English clergy employed Latin both in their study and their worship. So basically, at this time, England was bilingual. However, during the rule of William, England became trilingual, where a literal clergy still used Latin, but a new ruling class employed normal French. And English was primarily restricted to the common people. These changes that were brought in during the rule of William, they had their long-term effects, as not just William, but all rulers after him, his successors also made English in a subservient position. And for some 300 years, no English king spoke English as a native language. The Norman kings ruled England for about 88 years till 1154, and Stephen, who was the grandson of William, he was the last conqueror of Norman dynasty. After this came the Plantagenet rulers. Who belonged to a royal house which originated from the lands of Anjou in France. The House of Plantagenet, however, consisted of two headed branches, the House of Lancaster and the House of York, whom we'll talk about later. Henry, Count of Anjou, succeeded Stephen in 1154 and he became Henry II of England. His reign is popularly remembered for his revival of royal justice and, more importantly, for his feud, for his quarrel with Thomas Becket, who was the then Archbishop of Canterbury. The feud was regarding the power of church court, and ultimately, the feud ended with the murder of Saint Becket at Canterbury in 1170. Now, in 1199, John, the fourth son of Henry II, ascended the throne after a 10-year rule by his brother, Richard I. And he was a stereotypical wicked king who would impose high taxes on the people. And also, it was during his reign that England lost her French possessions. Then, in 13th century, there was a shift in French poetry from exclusively military or heroic subjects to a more chivalric or fashionable romance, or even dream and vision poetry. It is highly evident in one of the most beautiful poems of that time, Roman de la Rose, which was later translated by Chaucer as the Romance of the Rose or the Romance of the Rose. Now coming towards the most eventful period of medieval age, which was 14th century, that begins with the reign of Edward III, who ascended throne in 1327. Right after he was crowned, he launched a campaign, he launched a successful campaign in Scotland, after which he declared that he should be the rightful heir of the French throne. And this is what led to the famous 100 Years' War in France that began in 1337. Now, let's talk something about 100 Years' War. It was a series of conflicts that was waged by the House of Plantagenet against the French House of Valois. And as the name suggests, it stretched for about 100 years, and in fact more than 100 years, and ended in 1453. Initially, England saw victories at Sluys in 1340, Crecy in 1346, and at Calais in 1347. However, while this war was still going on, little did the soldiers they know that there is something deadly awaiting for them, and that was the Great Plague or the Black Death, as we popularly know it. This Black Death began from Asia in 1347 and it reached England around 1348. It encompassed several parts of Europe and Asia and ended in 1351, resulting in the deaths of around 75 to 200 million people in Eurasia, that is Europe and Asia combined. Now, here's this video, which will give you an idea how devastating this epidemic was. First one. The after effects of this Black Death was seen years and years later till I think the next train came, then also the after effects of the Black Death was clearly visible.
पहले करके रखना चाहिए तो निकाल के मैच वाला
Is something audible out there?
इससे आवाज़ नहीं होती सारे शेयर खोल लो सबके फ़ोन में चला जाएगा
Before Great League began,
So,
everything
the
was
phone
very,
is
going very peaceful and the economy was rising and everything was going very good in England. However, after that big hit, it started from China and it came to England through ships, through trade.
क्या था यार
Where, while the plague was widespreading, the kings and the noble people, they took shelter in the outskirts and so they were left untouched by the plague. However, all the peasants and the common people, they remained in the middle of that plague and they were the most affected people. So the first sign was seen in the docks of the ship that came to England for doing trade. And it was immediately sent back, but by then the plague had already started to spread.
इधर भी आता है मेरा बैकग्राउंड में
Because of the plague, there was an unrest in the society that also began to increase. Not just the social conditions, but also people started to question their religious values because when they went to church to get refuge, they were turned away because even the priests were scared of getting in contact with the consequence of the plague. So they thought if the church is also not providing them shelter, then who will? So they started questioning their religious beliefs. From England, it spread to Russia, and where it ultimately ended.
ब्लैक क्या है ब्लैक इंडियन पहुंचा था क्या हो गया बहुत ड्रामा हो गया बहुत
So as I've already told you that major victims of this great plague was the common people, peasant class or the labor class. And this created series of religious, social, and economic upheavals which had profound effects on the course of European history throughout. It placed a very considerable strain on both the rural labor market and the towns. Another clip that is, yeah.
पहले एक फोन में चीज एक क्लिप ये
So this clip basically shows the immediate consequences of the plague and how the labor class was hard hit by this plague. Most of the people from labor class died, and which resulted in shortage of labor. And after this, they started taking advantage of this because the demand was more and supply was very less. So they started asking for more prices, more wages.
There's no way of connecting me to the system.
ये जब हमें सुनाई दे रहा
They were in demand and could ask for higher wages and cheaper rents. Before the Black Death, labour was plentiful.
क्या कर रही है
It was very, very difficult. You couldn't
इसके नीचे
get people to come to the jobs. You couldn't get people to come to a call with installations. You couldn't find people to repair your roof unless you paid them. So all through the way, 4 times the wages you paid for. Across the land, agricultural labourers threw off the shackles of the past. The old order of the English landscape was changing. For the next parish, that's what progress. Then, about the level for higher wages elsewhere. The Jewish found their contempt for the king, but they're not gone. We'll not catch up with them. The feudal insurgencies were crumbling. The offers of service were being streamed to breaking point. The establishment itself was in a threat. I have that, my neighbours. This was strongly felt my brother and throughout the whole of England, the Lords and Churchill-like. Because of it, the leading men of the kingdom appeared before the king and asked some remedy for these problems to be obtained.
उधर करिए पहले
The wages were bad news. The king Edward's third response was astonishing.
अगर मतलब ये
In 1349, it was the pestilence raged. He commanded the workers to set wages at the 1346 levels. It was a sign of just how rapidly the establishment felt. Commissions were set up around the country, finding people who were charging the odds of the labour. But the laws of supply and demand proved too strong. The Black Death was forcing social money
the crisis
drama हो
was
रहा है.
increasing, it also caused a political threat. And this is when Edward III came into the rescue, and he made several attempts to regulate and curb these rising wages. And it was under his reign that England made such a swift recovery from the epidemic. As we know that the Hundred Years' War was still going on, it just came to a halt because of epidemic, and it resumed. And in 1355, England saw a victory at the Battle of Poitiers. Under the reign of Edward III, English social life and economic history it changed, as feudalism was soon replaced by mercantilism, as we have also seen in the character of Wycliffe Bath in Chaucer, that she belonged to an emerging merchant class. It was during this period that French was gradually being replaced by English. It came into use in English court in 1362 and in Parliament in 1363, which means that after 1363, all the legal matters of England were done and were dealt in English. However, this was not the same English as the Germanic tribes used. This time, English re-emerged as a term which was simplified in structure, and its spellings, vocabulary, and literary expressions were highly influenced by Roman French. And not just the language part, but also the subjects shifted away from Germanic insulation to a shared Western European pattern. After the death of Edward III in 1377, Richard II, his grandson, ascended the throne, and within 4 years, his reign met with Peasants' Revolt, or the Wat Tyler's Revolt of 1381. Now, the immediate cause of this revolt was the imposition of high poll tax that was imposed by the king. However, the Black Death had already caused socio-economic and political tensions among the labor class. Although Edward III had suppressed the raging voices of peasants, but the anger did not fade away. So that tension got mixed up with this unpopular tax that was implemented, and this caused revolt. The revolt, however, soon collapsed, and its leaders were tried and executed. The poll tax, which was earlier imposed on them, was not revived, however, and not all the commoners of England were subjected to any such tax in future. We can also see the example of peasants' revolt in John Gower's works Levantis. Now, after talking about the social conditions that took place after the Black Death happened, let's move on to the religious changes, as Black Death had immense impact on religion as well. In the late 14th century, right after Black Death, church was deeply affected, as the society was unstable. The parish clergy seems to have suffered highly from a decline, not only in quantity but also in quality. This worrying inadequacy of the parish clergy became a recurring theme of writings of William Lamb in his Piers Plowman, John Wycliffe, who attacked the misuse of papal powers, and most importantly, as you all are familiar with Geoffrey Chaucer in his Canterbury Tales. Chaucer, in a very portrayal of his character, satirizes this incompetence and corruption that was widespreading in the parish clergy. For instance, as we see the character of Prioress, she is presented in a more ladylike manner. And then comes the monk, who enjoys a luxurious life. He enjoys cladding in furs and boots and likes to hunt, and he also indulges in gluttony. Then we see worldly friar, who accepts bribes, a lecherous summoner who makes a parade of his limited learning, and finally, pardoner, who is such a fraud that he carries a bag full of false relics. It is important for us to know that by attacking these characters, he is not attacking the individuals, but the whole profession in general, as he could see it that was happening in the 14th century England. In 1399, After the death of Richard II, Henry IV became the first king from the Lancaster branch of Plantagenets. As I've already told you, the Plantagenets had two cadet branches, the House of Lancaster and the Yorks. So earlier, Plantagenets as a whole, the kings came from Plantagenet dynasty as a whole. But after this, the two branches they split up and a rivalry began to brew. Then came Henry V, who succeeded Henry IV, and he became the second English monarch of the House of Lancaster. And it was under his rule that England attained victory at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, which was during the 100 Years' War. And it was the last important victory of England. Because after this, the French army took over, and with their important victories at Orleans in 1428 to 29, Patay in 1429, and finally at Castillon in 1453. The war ended with victory of France, and the House of Valois retained the French throne. After getting a defeat in the 100 Years' War, the House of Lancaster was weakened, and after this was erupted the Wars of the Roses. Wars of the Roses, it was a series of English civil wars which was fought between the supporters of two rival branches of Plantagenet dynasty, the House of the Lancaster and the House of York. The importance of the symbol of rose is very crucial here, as the House of Lancaster was associated with a red rose, while the House of York was represented by a white rose. This war lasted for about 30 years, as it began in 1455 and lasted till 1485. The initial years of this war were marked by Yorkist victory. The House of York won, and they reigned for most period of time. But ultimately, the Lancasters won this war with Henry Tudor as their next king. Henry Tudor also he later came to be known as Henry VII of England. He became the first monarch of Tudor dynasty. Thus, with the end of the Wars of the Roses, the extinction of House of Lancaster was marked, and also it ended the Plantagenet dynasty as a whole. And this Plantagenet dynasty, or the House of Lancaster, you could say, was replaced by Tudor dynasty. And eventually, this all led to the end of Middle Ages in England. Was beneficial.
Shansu, I hope and I wish and I really understand that our students greatly benefited from this very informative, very simple yet very powerful lecture by Shansu. Thank you so much. We will now break up for the tea for 15 to 20 minutes and we'll assemble back here after the minutes. Thank you very much.